Good morning, dear students, and welcome back to our today's online class. We are studying about friction, and this belongs to chapter number 12. And we have already discussed about friction in our earlier chapter also, while studying about force. It is a type of force. We learned in our previous class that friction is a force that comes into play between two surfaces when they slide or roll above each other. And we also learned that friction always opposes motion. Now, in our today's class, we are going to discuss about some uses of friction as well as disadvantages of friction. We make use of friction in our everyday life also. At the same time, there are some disadvantages of friction in our everyday life which we don't want to happen. Now let us discuss these two things in our today's class. First, we are going to discuss about uses of friction, some advantages of friction, in our everyday life. Friction helps us to walk and prevents us from slipping. So whenever you are walking, we are walking, that is because of friction. Now when we walk, we apply force on the ground with our sole of our shoes or slippers. At the same time, the ground also applies force. They rub against each other, the sole of our shoes as well as the grass or the ground. They act two surfaces and they slide over each other. Therefore, a frictional force applies over there in between our sole and the grass. And this friction opposes motion. Hence, this friction provides a strong grip of our sole on the ground, thereby preventing us from slipping. Hence, friction helps us to walk properly without slipping. For example, when we walk on a wet floor, we fall, we slip. There is a chance that we might slip. This is because when there is water on the floor, water acts as very smooth surface. And remember, we learned in our earlier class, smoother the surface, lesser will be the friction. Rougher the surface, more will be the friction. So to walk properly, there has to be more friction. Then only our sole will be gripped on the ground. But when we walk on water, water being very smooth surface, they do not generate that much of friction between our sole and the ground. Therefore, we don't have enough friction, and since there is less friction, there won't be proper grip of our sole on the ground. Hence, our foot wants to be in motion, therefore we slip. Is that clear, boys? Friction between the car tires and road gives a grip to the road and keeps the car on the ground. The cars are able to run on the road because of friction between car tires and road. It also stops car tires from skidding on the road as well as stop whenever we want our car to stop. If there are no friction between car tires and the ground, for example, if the car runs on a slippery road such as when oils get spilled over road, at that time there is oil on the surface of the road which acts as a very smooth surface. At that time our car can skid and we might meet a serious accidents also at that time. Therefore, to run our car smoothly, the roads must be little rough. It shouldn't be perfect smooth. If the road is perfect smooth, for example, a road made of ice, say suppose if you try to run your car on icy road, then what will happen? The surface becomes very smooth, as a result of which friction is very less, and we will not have control on our cars. Our car can slip here and there and finally meet an accident. Therefore, friction helps our cars to have good grip on the road, as well as stop whenever we want our car to stop. Friction also produces heat and makes us feel warm on a cold winter day. And that is why whenever we feel cold, we rub our hand. And when we rub our hand, there is a friction playing between the two surfaces, between our palms, as a result of which heat is produced, and that heat produced in our palm helps us to keep us warm. Friction helps us to light a matchstick or any fire. So when we struck a matchstick on the rough surface of the matchbox, what happens? We get a fire. The matchstick gets lighted. In the same way, if we rub two dry surfaces, like dry wood pieces with some other dry hard substance, then at that time also the dry wood pieces catches fire. Why? Because friction produces heat. Friction helps us to hold things with our hands or write with a pen or pencil. We are able to hold different things with our hand due to friction. And where does friction occur? Between our fingers, palms, and the object which we are holding. We are able to write with the help of pen or pencil because there is a friction between our fingertips and the pen. And there is a friction between the paper, on the surface of the paper, as well as on the lead of the pen, due to which we are able to write. So friction helps us in various ways in our everyday life, and we use friction every time to do our different activities, from walking, from writing, from holding things, from driving, from playing in the field. In the field, when we want to play football, we need the help of friction. Because of friction, we are able to run in the field. Because of friction, we are able to hold the ball properly. If there were no friction, then we wouldn't have played properly in the field. We would have slipped every time. Okay, so friction plays very, very important role in our everyday life to do our different activities. Although there are so many uses, advantages of friction in our everyday life, there are some disadvantages also. Friction also sometimes causes harmful effects. So let us try to see some harmful effects of friction. Friction makes it difficult for heavy objects to move or even ride a bicycle over a rough road. For example, here, to push our heavy objects such as sofas, it is very difficult. Why? Because heavier the object, rougher the object, more friction will be there. Hence, friction opposes motion. Therefore, we have to apply more force to move the object. Hence, it becomes a little difficult task. Even to ride on rough road, you must have faced this, experienced this in your life. When you ride a bicycle on a smooth road, it becomes very easy. But when you ride your bicycle on a rough road, it becomes difficult. Why? Because in rough road, there is more friction compared to smooth road. Hence, you need to pedal harder. The heat produced by friction may damage machine parts also. So, our machines, they slide over each other. Therefore, there is a friction between them. And when friction is there, heat is produced. Because of that heat, our machine gets weared and teared. Our machine parts gets damaged. Therefore, we need to replace. If our machine gets damaged, then our instrument will not work properly. Therefore, we need to either replace the damaged part, or either we need to again polish it, refine it, and make it usable. Therefore, friction causes damage to our machine parts. The sole of our shoes and surfaces of tires wear out because of friction. I am sure you must have faced this in your everyday life. You must have seen this picture of your shoe sole. How is this possible? This is because in the beginning only we learned that friction helps us to work. So there is friction between the sole of our shoes and the ground, and that friction can damage our sole. Hence what happens? We have to replace, we have to buy new shoe, which is good, but there is a loss of money. Your shoe gets damaged, your money gets wasted, you need to buy another shoe. In the same way, our tires also gets weared and teared because of friction, as a result of which we need to buy another tire. So these are some of the harmful effects of frictions which we face in our everyday life. Although friction has more advantages, there are some drawbacks also. With this, we end our today's class, boys. When we come back for our next class, we will try to learn different ways of reducing friction, so that this wear and tear, the difficulty of moving things, protecting our machinery parts becomes easy for us. So we'll discuss that in our next class. According to our today's learning, there is an assignment for you, assignment 8. Question number 1, how does friction help us to walk? Question number 2, write any 2 uses of friction from our daily lives. And number 3, write any 2 disadvantages of friction from our daily life. This much for today, boys. Stay safe and do all things well.